All right, welcome back to the Do Big Things podcast, Mr. Michael Lee. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing good.
Good, good. I talked to you. It was about a year ago, I think, and you had this love affair with Mount Tam that is just fascinating to me because last year you racked up 200 miles out there, which was a huge achievement, huge accomplishment. I had you on the show. We talked about it for a long time. And this year you decided to make it even bigger. And you did 40 laps on Mount Tam, which equaled over 300 miles and over 100,000 vertical feet.
Yes, sir.
Dude,
Yes, sir.
I'm an ultra runner. You're an ultra runner. Like, I get it. I understand. Like, I totally get it. But to people who aren't ultra runners or people who just don't understand this sort of lifestyle, give us a why. Like, just explain like why you came back to this same mountain to do an even bigger project.
So, a couple of things. I mean, Mount Tam has always been special for me, and in fact, during this whole endeavor, many people came and took laps with me, and they have all asked the questions that, man, 40 laps, aren't you sick of it? Like, you already done 200 on this, and coming back to do 40 more.
Right.
Answer's always the same, and that is, the mountain it's a very special place, as we all run on the hills will attest to. But to me, the company, the weather, the day, the time of the day. I mean, I'm privileged to see 13 sunrises, 13 sunsets. I mean, 12 sunsets technically, and the weather changes when it's a glorious day versus when it's just mad as hell, storming. But most of all, like, how I feel inside, difference every time when I actually go up the mountain. And so all that combination changes and makes each of the summit unique. And that's how I actually made it, make the journey so special. And the other why that often people, apart from the fact that, it is something that seems impossible, as a big task, that in itself has we can segue into that, just a human mind of pushing your limits, and that's how you grow, right? And I think in the 200, when I did it last year, there was a moment. I mean, I've done enough hundreds where I get the first 100 miles, I've got it down. I had no problem with it. It's really when I first step off the 100 miles in between 100 to wherever the finish is, that was the unknown. And in that experience, that last year, it turned out, people came out and ran with me 150, 160, 170 miles. And the most common remarks was, how the hell do you actually look so fresh? And why are you still smiling? And why are you still moving? And I was flabbergasted in terms of how I was feeling that joy and that lightness. And so part of the goal of coming back was to lean harder into that space, that unknown. And I have to say, and I get a little emotional talking about that.
Sure.
That what I thought was going to be the scariest, the most unknown part of this journey turned out to be the most wonderful and the most amazing part of the experience. Everything that I anticipated is going to be scary and crazy turned out to be like, things just worked. And it's a big dose of power of intention. When you set out an intention, a goal to go do something, and you just kind of let the pieces fall into place, everything. I mean, there are things that actually went sort of not what we expected, but instead of bucking it and try to fit it to what we wanted, what we had planned it to be, the moment I ease into it, the results became more positive. It was trippy.
Wow.
I mean, if that wasn't a a journey both up the mountain as well as an inward journey. I couldn't tell you what that is. If I can bottle it, if I can empower someone else to experience that, that whole discovery, man, I mean, I would do that forever. So there's a very long-winded why, but
that's perfect.
Hard to turn on, just somewhat summarize into one phrase. You know what I mean? It's such a big experience, and I'm still unpacking. I was at yoga last night, and middle of shavasana, I cried. You know, I had waves of emotions that actually came back through me, and tears just poured.
Yeah, well,
it was good. It was good.
I get it. I've been there. I've had tears, and I've had full on crying jags after 100 miles. So this is triple that. So yeah, I can only imagine, man. Now, why did you decide to come back? Now, I know you love Mount Tam and you've had great experiences out there. Why did you decide to come back to Mount Tam rather than creating some beautiful 300-mile loop or a point-to-point 300-miler or something like that?
One, it's a familiarity, and two, it was unfinished business. Last year, when I actually started 200, the goal was 250. I had to actually cut short, and it wasn't really cut short. I mean, I look at it as, again, one of those things that I surrendered to the experience, right? Mm-hmm. The moment, and then the biggest takeaway from a 200 last year was the moment I surrendered, the moment I let go of trying to force the outcome of the way I expected it. Mm-hmm. Everything kind of come together. Everything became lighter. And it really is a process of relearning that and trying to do more. That's what brought it back. But the 250 last year was originally all the crew would know. I showed up day one with the pace chart that was for 250 miles. This is where I'm going to eat. This is where I'm going to sleep. Well, that chart lasted about a day. And then everything just went out the window. My buddy Bruce and the crew now have two phrases that we live by on every extreme ultra: plan for the plan not working, improvise, adapt, and overcome. Those are the two mantra that we actually live by, because you cannot go into anything like this expecting, the plan is going to work. And in fact, evolution from last year, March, to another 200 that I did in September to 2021 to here, I see myself evolve in terms of the planning coming into this. It's a bigger project. I've done less planning. I've done less vigorous trying to fit myself and cramp myself to do huge mileage blocks. Mm-hmm. But I went and did, for example, in training coming into this, I did more cross training. I spent 5 to 6 days every week in 90 minutes, 90 degrees hot yoga to practice the mind, to settle the mind when it's noisy, right? When I'm uncomfortable, how do I actually get ease of that? Breathe through the exercise. And I have some, during the 300, there are issues. My knee was bothering me when it was radiating between a 2 to 3 most days. I mean, I'm coming into a 300 with a runner knee is not exactly the most, easiest thought on the first day, right? Sure. And just kind of managing that discomfort. Mm-hmm. And to know that I cannot let it take over me, because the moment I give it attention, it's going to turn around and become a bigger thing. And so to manage that over 13 days, to say, I need this to in check, I am aware of it, but not actually let it overpower me, so that I can actually carry through the entire journey. I'm gonna take the next 3 weeks off running and chill out and let it do its thing, to do whatever it needs to do. But that's a process that was very much mental, and it's a practice of being mindful, being in the present. So a lot of that was a much more internal journey, as well as a epic journey up on the mountains. I mean, 3.5 Everest is what I was gunning for.
Right.
And it was funny how, and I want to give credit because it was one time that I was actually climbing up Tam, and the very last section is a scramble, and you saw it in the video that I sent you, the drone footage that we kind of just scrambled up. I ran into a local legend, Magdalena Boulay, and Magda, of course, it's Western States winner, hard rock, and so on and so forth. Her reputation precedes her. And then she was the one who actually came up with, introduced me to the term Everesting. And I'm going like, so I actually, after that run, I went back and looked it up and I'm like, wow, that is so cool. And then it's just kind of went into the back burner, and it never really actually kind of fruition come to until when I Tile 200 in 2020 cancel, 2021 cancel, and somebody did 100 miles on Tam. I'm like, yes, that's my gig. That's my first 200. And it's one of those things that it call out to you, right? And it wasn't something that I was seeking out for. I was looking at a couple of 100-mile race, 150, but it wasn't exactly a 200. I train it for a 200. I want a 200. And so when that two things collide and it clicked, it was full steam. There was never a doubt. And it was exactly the same thing for the 300. I mean, literally a couple months later, after we finished the 200, I already talked about either 300 or a last person standing, right? Just keep going up until, whoever actually say, I'm done.
I tap.
Right. But that would be kind of cool, right?
Totally. Wow. Wow, man. And as cool as it is, this journey that you did, this big adventure, I am personally more interested in the internal journey that you were on throughout this whole thing. And in your preparation for this, you mentioned going to hot yoga, spending 90 minutes in a hot yoga studio. That's no joke. And that takes a lot of getting used to. I've done that. What other things did you do to prepare yourself mentally for this? And you also mentioned being scared of some things in this 300 miler. What are some of the big things you were scared of in the beginning?
Sure. So cross training a lot. I did a lot of weight and core training. And so, somebody actually asked me that, like, how do you train for 300?
You can't.
You don't. Precisely, right? You can't go out and do a 300 to train for a 300. You can't even go out and do, granted I did a 200 in September, and then I kind of taper off after that. I crewed a couple of Bruce at Moab. After that in October, ran Quad Dipsy in November, and then my December, it was a December month was just off. It was basically after a really busy 2021, I took December off, and then it kind of really ran back up in January, knowing that March was my goal date. But I didn't put in crazy miles, and Adam, I gotta say, as much as crazy of a feat this was, I'm not the elite runner. I'm not the professional athlete. I don't have a personal trainer. It's me, right? I am coaching myself. I'm gauging by feel of how my body is responding, and really, I had the privilege of having Dean Carnassus pacing me to final lap.
Yeah.
When we were talking, I said, dude, I'm just an average Joe back of the packer trying to do something crazy. And he goes, dude, no average Joe goes up 40 times and trying to do these numbers, right? But the point is, you can be, right? It doesn't have to be a 300. Whatever your impossible would be, anybody have that wall, have that limit. And the goal is, and the point here is that you can actually, whatever you feel is impossible, you can actually tap up to it. And it always look impossible because you never done it before. Until it's done, it is possible.
Right.
Back to your story, back to your question about the scariest part. Well, I know I've done a couple of 200s. I crew enough 200s. I know what that looks like. And in fact, a couple of my buddies, Seth Paul Dela and I crew and paced him at Western States last year. Bruce Nguyen, which is, my ride and die for all his 200s. And, we do a lot of crazy stuff together over the course of the last couple of years. And both guys said to me, he goes, "Hey, when do you want me?" And I said, "Look, I don't need you guys to show up until after 200. The first 200, I got it." Well, I don't, it's crazy, right? Even just to utter that statement. And it's
Right.
like, I said, I got the first 200. What I need, where is the unknown for me is 200 and beyond. Like if you do the math, I mean, if you look at my Strava, it came out to be like 385 miles. That's with some GPS drift error of the device, because when you're idling and it's still tracking and satellite's moving, yada, yada, yada. But if you do the hard math, it's 8 miles a lap, 40 laps is 320 miles.
Okay.
So even after 200, it's still 120. That's another hundo and some beyond. And they're not counting the vert on top of that, right? Cumulative vert and cumulative fatigue and so on and so forth. So a couple of things I put into play. I did the math as to, okay, if I just do moving time, it'll be about 6-7 days. That is nonstop, no break. Just keep going. If you just go back to back to back to back. But the reality is that and any 200 miler will know that you need to sleep. And what I found, what I learned from the first 200 in March and the one in September, is that when I actually give my body rest, it made a huge difference. So I'll give you some examples. First 200, about 6 hours over 5 days, right? And this is typically when you go to like an ultra, like a 200 mile, like a Untitled 200 or Bigfoot, where you have to sleep on the trail along the way, and then you just kind of roll with it, right? And very sleep deprived, and you get hallucination, and I definitely got hallucinated in the first 200. Second 200, which is off own fat ass, Untitled 200 2021 got canceled, so we just say, so Candace said, yeah, if you meet the requirements, do the vert, do the miles, do the time, we'll give you the buckle. So we did it. We roll our own. But the one change that I was able to do this time was the fact that I was really in peak condition coming in. All the pacing and crewing leading up to September, I was in top shape. I mean, I did 50 miles on almost 12,000 feet of vert, just like, like I didn't ran at all. I was no poles, and it was my backyard. It was around Marin Headland, so it was beautiful. I loved it. I had so much fun. And I slept for 5 hours, day 4, night 4, the 4th night. Just slept. I cranked out all day on day 4, and then that night, I'm just like, I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed. 5 hours. 5 hours. I woke up the next morning like a new person. And the ability to be able to move day 5 on a 200-mile race, doing 9.5-minute pace, just unheard of. I mean, just like the legs are fresh. And so that kind of clicked one of the magic formula, right? It's like sleep makes a huge difference in how quickly your body recovers. And so unfortunately, back in the days when I used to do a lot of traveling for work, I'm a really good power napper. So to be able to just turn on and say, all right, I gotta shut the mind and take some deep breaths and then fall asleep, I'm really good at that. And so be able to turn on to get concentrated restoration sleep was a huge part of this exercise. I also know going into the project, I have to figure out the moving time. Well, I need sleep time. So I actually ballpark it could be about 10 days. What's going to be the original goal. So you'll see some original day was 17 through the 26. Well, we didn't finish till the 29th, 3 extra days. And so I had planned for that in that, and please do let me come back to remind me of this, to tell you the story, how we actually got the base camp where we actually did, because that is a divine invention of the universe. It is one of those stories that you set your intention and the universe come back to you with better offer, and you just gotta be willing to open and listen and to accept. I don't want to make this sound like a total like frou-frou, hippie.
I love the woo. It's okay.
You know what I mean? But it's one of these things that when you experience through it firsthand, you really can't deny it, and you have to actually speak to it, right?
Mhm.
And I think the more you're willing to receive that, the more you're going to see those things lighten up in your life.
Totally.
And so one of the things that I did was I planned it for, I asked when we set up this arrangements, I asked for 2 weeks of the space that it's 400 feet from the start and finish, 400 feet. So we can actually roll down the hill, get to the start. And when we finish, we actually had a party at base camp, champagne and all, and
Right.
everybody came by. So it's awesome. But I've planned it for 2 weeks to give myself the latitude that in the event after 10 days, and really about day 7, day 8, this is my planner mode, right? You know, in the event that, you know, by the time I get get past halfway, that my legs are not turning over as quickly. I'm not able to turn on, crank out four laps a day, that I need to spill over a few more days. I'm not actually forced to have to get out of my base camp, right? My base camp have 2 weeks. So I have 4 more days above and beyond what I've allotted for. So that's good to have that room.
Okay.
And we used 13 out of the
Yep.
14. So things worked out
Okay.
well. The boys showed up, and I said, and I mean, they showed up for me big time. I mean, these guys, one guy lived in San Jose, which is 2 hours drive, Sacramento, 2 hour drive, Oakland. They all go home. They'll come and they go home after the last lap with me, which is midnight, drive home for a few hours so they can attend to the family and be back for sunrise. Where do you sleep? Right. So,
Right.
you know, Bruce Nguyen, Thad Paul, and Norm, thank you. I mean, there's so many other people that actually showed, and that's another incredible part. And you ask, like, what was the unknown? You know, I thought the 200 to 300X would be the unknown, would be the scary part, would be where I actually going to be grinding up the hill, and, you know, like everything hurt, nothing hurt. My last 5 lap was the fastest laps of the 40.
Wow.
I had people that actually, you know, and again, from the get-go, it was never going to be a FKT experience where, again, everybody do their thing, right? My thing was never to be, hey, this is my FKT and I have a very small crew. I want this to be an inclusive experience. So in fact, about 3 weeks before the event, I've actually put out a post on Facebook and basically saying, hey guys, I know over the last 5-6 years, I've taken a lot of you guys up to Tam before. And if you have actually gone up with me and it was your first experience and I've taken a photo of you, please post it back into this thread. And it was just overwhelming, right? People just go, oh, I remember. And there was so, you know, thank you. It was such a good experience. So that kind of sort of acted as a starter of the whole initiative, whole movement. And then I opened her up. Basically, I was scheduling for 4 laps a day. And so I basically opened up sign-up sheets. People can sign up to do a lap with me. And out of the 40 laps, there was only 1 lap that I went up by myself. Every lap I have somebody showed up. Some people drove 2.5 hours just to run a lap with me and drive 2.5 hours home afterwards in rush hour. So that it made what was the unknown part much more friendly, if you will. And when you have a room full of people looking back at you and they are excited, you feed off that energy and that gives you even more. And they believe. I mean, yes, I believe that this was possible. It was one of those things from the very get-go that I have to believe. But to see a room full that I have now converted a bunch of strangers to believe in this Odyssey ride and that they actually can see the finish. It was it was very impromptu. We had a railing in front of our apartment. And then we just decided that we have these numbers that I actually take up to the top every time I tap the door, and I take a photo, my signature photo on top of Tam. And when we come back, I would hand him to crew chief, my crew chief Kendall Young, and I bag him and he tag him. That's our saying, right? And so as we start seeing that railing grow, it was both surreal, and it's one of these things that it really is happening. I mean, and it's slowly, right? And some days 3 laps, and we never, there's one night that I came back on a lap 4, and I think it was like day 5 or something like that. I was just fried, right? To the point that like I would just, and literally we had one of the many things that in our arsenal was bone broth, and I had a instant pot of bone broth, and I said, Chief, you need to get me one of those. And literally you can see the life came back into me after I drank that.
Okay.
I just like, my face just kind of, okay, I can go take a shower, come back and eat, and we can go to bed.
Yeah.
But it was things like that. I mean, not everything is, roses and sunshine, right? But there were never really like dark moments of, I don't want to do this. Never, ever. Like, this is hurting so much, I can't even fathom climbing. None. I mean, and I don't want to try to make it sound like this is like, some kind of kumbaya experience. It was tough, but it was amazing. If only we had cameras and people can actually live it and see the inside of it. We try to take as much of a documentary, but photos doesn't justify the true experience itself.
Right.
So,
right.
But the darkest part was what I thought was be 200 to whenever finish turned out to be the most amazing part of the journey. Everybody showed up. I mean, talk about like universe provides, right? So we had day 1, lap 1, I had 4 people signed up for the sunrise run, 5 a.m. So, you figure the first day we stay overnight the night before. So crew chief and I was the only 2 person there. And then I had one of my crew, Norman, and Kendall. Norman and Kendall was actually there from the very beginning, back in 2019, when I decided that, hey, there was an event called Jam on Tam. And so I decided that, hey, I challenged the RD, can I actually do, instead of the fastest, can I do the mostest in one day? And that was how it all started. And Kendall and Norman were the 2 original friends that actually decided to come and support me out of their tailgate, out of their trunk. And they slept in a car while I go up. Back in the days, we didn't, I'm kind of asking them like, why didn't you guys come run with me while I was going up and down? You could have paced me, right? They, whatever the reason, but it came. Fast forward to this time, lap 1, day 1. The other 3 people that actually registered for the first lap all flaked. They all no-showed, right? And Norman was a last minute. He goes, hey, do you think I can come? And so serendipity, right? The first lap was my crew chief, Kendall, and Norman, the original guys that actually back in 2009, they flanked me up the hill for the first lap.
Wow.
How special was that?
This is as full circle as it gets, right?
Dude, right? I mean, so many little things along the way that you see like that if you don't call out to it, and I mean, I couldn't plan it.
Right.
I couldn't plan it. And then, and then to the point where after, Kendall did 2 laps with me, this is with a herniated disc, right? It's just not really feeling it, but he goes, once I'm moving, I'm good. And by the end of the first day, he goes, look, I can't go back up anymore. And so every single door tap, I was doing it for him.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I tell him, and I say it now, and I say it again. I said, every door tap has his handprint next to behind mine when we tap the door. So sorry.
You're good, man. Dude, I get it. Yeah. I mean, you almost sound like a different person than the person I talked to last year. You sound more grateful, more enlightened, more humble. It just feels like I feel the journey you've been on, and I can feel that. Sure, it was a journey of the body, but it was a very, very internal journey. And like we said, this has come full circle right now. And looking at you and talking to you right now, I'm guessing that if you were to walk in front of a bus accidentally tomorrow and die, you would die a happy man. Like your life is pretty much complete.
Yeah. No, and again, it's gratitude is one of these things that you need to appreciate the people that actually were there for you, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it showed up in so many fashion. There are people that actually couldn't be there. Every morning I wake up, my phone is filled already with texts, messages. You're doing great. People are watching you. You're inspiring us. And I'm not like I said, I'm not a professional. Like this is the first time, is a very grassroots organic experience that I'm actually putting together. Just me and a guy want to go run up a mountain. That's it, right? And then having all of this support and people rally and what's the most craziest thing is, here I am putting out this sign up sheet, right? Asking people to come pace me. To me, it's me asking a favor, right? It's just like no different than you have a race, you ask for pacers to come pace you. Yes, I'm sharing, I'm going to be doing this. I'm sharing this experience, but everybody comes back after the end of the loop would thank me for actually be able to be part of this journey and experience. I was like, why are you thanking me? I'm the one should be thanking you for being here and coming all this way. Sometimes they come at a certain time, that the designated time, I'm still napping, and so we delayed it a little bit. Never, and I always come out and say, I'm so sorry to keep you guys waiting. And everybody's going like, dude, you're doing crazy shit here. So don't apologize. We're good. And just that community support. It's so funny. I went this, so our event finished on Tuesday. One of my crew chief, Kendall, his wife, Cindy, was instrumental. She did 10 laps with me.
Wow.
She went up 10 times, right? And she was training for AR50, American River 50 miles, which was the following. So we finished on Tuesday. The following Saturday was her 50 mile. And I've trained her since she's, back in COVID days, 2020, I trained her through her first marathon, her first 50K, and then we brought her to now her first 50 miles. And so the table turned, she took amazing care. I mean, oh my God, I love her and I hate her. I love her because she took I don't have to say what I want. She knew exactly what I want to eat. Little things like, my shirt needs whatever, and she took care of that. But I hate her because, she ruined me. How's that? It's a better word. The food was so freaking amazing. I can't think of myself going to another regular race event and it's thinking like, doing bean wrap or quesadillas. Like, look, this is not how you do ultra. This is like, if you want to do, we were eating like pork chops. We were eating like real good, like protein, salmon, pasta, mashed potatoes, tons of greens. Oh, talk about greens. I mean, my body went through like a 4-day of like, what the heck is happening, right? I mean, I knowing coming into this, having done this enough times, I brought 4 pounds of greens, pre-cooked, stocky, leafy greens. And I'm sorry, this is running show, so I can talk about, bowel movement if we need to. 4 days before I took my first outgoing.
4 days.
Exactly. So, and I was eating greens every day to make sure that I was staying regular, and it wasn't coming out. It was just basically the body is kind of like, what is happening? We've been doing 18 hours a day of major caloric burn, and it just kind of in this heightened state, right? And finally just decided, all right, after 4 days, you're not stopping, so somebody have to change, and they just kind of like gave in. And once that happened, it was like the amount of food, I mean, it was so optimal. My pee was completely clear. It wasn't like, so I was hydrating basically a liter, 2 flasks, 4 hours. I finished at 8 miles. So normally I do 1 500 milliliter flask for every 6 miles. So I'm drinking double of that over the course of 8 miles because of the exertion and what have you. And whether it's sunrise, day, night, always same amount of volume. We were doing salt every hour on the hour. And then later on we switched. I stopped taking salt and I just switched to Pedialyte. And that was actually my electrolyte influx throughout. So that 1 bottle of water, 1 bottle of electrolyte, boom. And I was able to turn on, dial down my meals to basically, I eat an apple or some fruit at the top of the hill, come back, I had have a regular meal and no processed stuff. And huge change. I mean, yeah, I understand that those are probably a parameter. It's not something that you can actually realistically do at a real ultra, right? In a real 200. But if you have that option, or you have at least some way to mix in that kind of combination, real food, proper hydration, and just nutritious real food can make a huge difference in terms of your body recovery. And BCAA, I was taking those as a dial up. So meaning that I would start it in the beginning was 2 a day, 2 in the morning, 2 at night. To the end of the exercise, we're doing 4 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, 4 at night.
Okay.
So to give the muscles as much as the recovery as possible. That was huge.
That's a good idea.
To the point where 200 last year, every lap I go up, I did 21 laps. Every lap that I had to get my legs had to be rolled out using rollers. This time after day 3, I put the rollers away and we never actually used it.
Wow.
It was incredible. Like to feel like it was just the body eventually after like 6-7 days, it just optimized.
Yeah.
My heart rate climbing the steepest part of the 34% grade. There's about 3/4 mile in the middle, which is the gully, I call it. It's called on the trail called Tamalpa. It's the steepest part. My heart rate was never lower than 96 to 110. And
Perfect.
then I've got people coming in, throughout, and because they are on their lap 1, right? I'm on lap X, and I'm stationary within that number, that range, and then never gone higher or lower, and it would just steady, right? So 3.5 hours is typical. An hour and a half is typical. Like between an hour, 20 minutes to an hour and a half is the ascent, and then the rest is the descent. So I took my time. But you'll see in my Facebook, there's numerous videos that people actually are running with me, and they're filming. It's like, this guy is 200 or 300 miles in, and he's still running. And I'm not running like shuffling. I was doing like good 12-minute pace on a very runnable surface, and for like 2-3 miles at a go. And I'm not bragging, please. It's not a brag. It's just the body feel good. And I truly believe, especially in that long of a distance, when you feel it, when you feel good, take advantage of it, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Don't feel it when it's hot, whatever the condition is, or your body feel like crap at the moment, just walk, just walk. But when you feel good, run. Take as much as you can, and then close that gap. Somebody actually said to me afterwards, and I didn't realize that I even actually said that. It was at the 20th summit. I took the photo and I had the video, and I said, we're now at 20, halfway. We start counting down from here. And somebody actually commented on that. You didn't say there's 20 more. You say you're counting down. So it's just how you frame it, right? How your mind look at the problem. Do you see it's still an uphill battle, or you see just like how every summit has a top and you have they come back down. Well, that's 20 right there. And then now we're climbing down the rest of the way, right? The hardest part is already over. So if you keep shifting that frame of mind, it makes the impossible more possible.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you guys just have it completely dialed just based on your experience from the last couple of years. And I'm interested in all the tricks. So far, you've mentioned the branch chain amino acids,
Yep.
the bone broth. Last year, I remember you mentioning the compression boots, and you said that was a game changer.
Still using them. Yep. Every time I go to sleep, if I lay down for half an hour, however long, I go into them. Elevated Lakes is actually the brand I use, but they're compression boots.
Yep.
But when I go to sleep, I take a shower. My feet. Oh my God! I mean, I have one tiny little blister day 3 or 4 in. I popped it. Never, not a single blister. Nothing.
And so, what were you doing to your feet to take care of them?
I didn't even loop them. I didn't even loop them. Oh my God. I mean, the one blister that I had, once I popped them, I taped them. That tape never come off until the end of the 13 days.
Yeah.
I take my socks off. I take my shoes off every time I come back to the house. So at the end of the lap, take everything off. I don't necessarily wash them or anything like that, but I let them breathe. And my dad was asking me, like, you look at my feet, he goes like, how you don't have any kind of like blister, or like, it looks like you didn't run.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm not really prone to blisters to begin with. Injinji socks. I had 2 pair of brand new shoes. I had a pair of Ultra Olympus to start off, and I intended to, and then I have a new pair of Mont Blanc Ultra as well. Yeah. They were super, super cushy, and I deliberately saved the Mont Blanc for 200 miles and beyond. So literally, when I hit 200 miles, I put the Ultras away and then switched to the Mont Blanc for the last 120. It's think about what I just said, right? Another 120 miles on a brand new pair of shoes. That's like a race by itself for most people. And I remember distinctly at the night that we finished the last lap, and it was lap 30. And I was sitting in front of the railing with one all the way through 20 with my foot on the rail when I just came back in. 10 more, right? The number was 10 more, but then I'm thinking like, that's still 80 miles. That's still 80 miles, right? That's still 80 miles. And when you think about it, it's like 25,000 feet of vert still. And I think one of what this chasing this bigger number started from when I actually finished the 200 last year. I didn't even actually think until I look at the vert. It's like, holy crap, I did 57,000 feet of vert. How did that work? I didn't feel that. And then and so when we did the second fat ass 200 in September, I was really gunning for it. Our requirement was 34,000. That's what Tahoe 200 was. And I have actually mapped it a route, a 50-mile route, that is 12,000 feet of gain. That means 4 of those is going to be 48,000. My buddy Bruce was like, why the hell are we climbing more, right? Because I said, well, we've done that before. So we end up doing like hill repeats. We compromise, right? And again, that was one of the things that not stuck to my expectation. That was the plan change, evolve during the course of the event, flow with it, right? Just ease into it. And that's what my partner wanted to do. We did it. But this time it was just me. It was just me as my chessboard, right? And I have the luxury of not based on and again, it's my chessboard. It's not, I sign up for a race. If I sign up for a race, I adhere to the rules of the RD, right? The race. But in this case, I get to set the rules.
Right.
So the rules was I want 40 laps. I want 3.5 Everest, and whatever the vert happens to be. That's my rule, right? And if I need to throw more time at it, okay, be okay with that. And so it came a point one night, it was, I can't remember what lap though, I think 36 or 35 or whatever. And we were going up the hill in the middle of the day, and it was storming, and the storm was coming, and it was going to hit at 7 p.m. that night, and that would have been our time to go out for the night lap. And I was already actually looking at this as like, and I'm really more so looking at the group that was with me at the time on that loop, and I'm thinking like, these people came out to support me. I don't want to take them up the hill in the storm and risk endanger their safety.
Right.
And so, and we have, during last year in March, we did actually run into a storm, and it was only 3 of us, and it got ugly. And so it was kind of like, it's kind of like maybe how the universe is like, hey, here's a test again. Then you with the exact same scenario, what would you do different this time? Did you learn, right? And it was funny because I got back to the bottom and to the house, and I said to Chief and the rest of the crew, say, hey, I think we should sit out tonight. Unbeknownst to me, my council had already decided that they weren't going to go out, and they were trying to convince me how they were actually going to pitch to me that we're not going to go out, and how we actually going to work the rest of the loop. And they were just like a sigh of relief that I came to the same conclusion on my own. How is that not a lesson? Right?
Serendipity again.
Right? Serendipity. I have to go into the story about how we found a place, because it's a good story.
Yeah, please.
So
last year you stayed in an RV near the bottom, right?
Thank you for reminding that, for catching us back to that. So Bruce has a 31-footer trailer RV that we haul up to Mill Valley. Nice neighborhood, very expensive, yada, yada, yada. And so we park in a nook, like a sort of like a pull-out corner in the middle of the residential area. And when we showed up, the neighbor literally across the street was like, hey, are they parking that thing there? And again, it's 2021, just post-COVID. So a lot of, squatters, people actually just homeless, and they just take the RV and just go park somewhere nice. And then and then all of a sudden become an eyesore in the neighborhood. I mean,
right.
We all experience that shit, especially around the Bay Area here. So they came out, they talked to us, and Kendall, my crew chief at the time, had actually, hey, put on the sugar and sweets. And once they realized what we were doing, they were amazing. They was like, can we get you power? Can we get you water? And they brought out cookies, fresh baked cookies. And the same people, when I actually went back to email them before this 300, and they saw us going up. When we come back down the hill, in front of the house was a chair with a big bag of cookies for the Mount Tam 300 people. It's like, and then the same story back last year, there's also neighbors that actually go up and down and see us that have been parked there for like 3 days, and then decided to call the cops, right? So the cops came and saying, hey, yes, there's no sign to say, hey, you can't park here, but now that we have a complaint, I had to give you a 24-hour notification, and you have to move in the end of 24 hours, which is fortunate because that was day 3. So we actually get to stay till day 4, end of day 4, and we finish day 5. So we just move it the last day down the hill, and we're able to finish down the bottom.
No sweat.
So fast forward to beginning of this year, and again, intention, right? The power of intention. We went out, Kendall and I went up and did the sunrise run, and we went to some of the neighbors that were friendly to us. And one of the neighbors is Hillary, and she has a huge driveway. So we even kind of snuck in there and just kind of measure, and yeah, we could totally dock the trailer in here, unhitch, and I'll pay her like something, maybe trying to get use the bathroom or parking, just rental for the space, and their car can still get around. All great. Down back the hill, the end of the run, Kendall was changing out of his trunk, and I'm across the street. And then we heard a voice goes, hey, it's a $500 parking ticket to park there if you don't live around here, right? And Kendall, I call him Reverend Kendall, because he was just about to turn around and say, look, hey. He turned around, eyes met. It was his buddy for 25 years. They used to race mountain bikes and all over Europe, all over US, and they used to party like rock stars. Dave Mackey is his name. And so Dave kind of like, what the hell are you doing here? Right? Just ran up to Tam. My friend over there, he did the 200 last year. And Dave looked at me, he goes, oh, I know him. He's always here. And cut to the chase was like, well, we were just up there looking for a place for his 300 that he's thinking of doing this year. He goes, 300? When are you doing that? He goes, March, April time frame. I said, he goes, well, I usually go to Switzerland to ski for a couple of weeks around March. You can use my apartment if you want. That's how it came together.
Wow.
About serendipity of the power of intention. The morning we went out and looked for a spot to be our base camp, a better version of the base camp. We now have a full kitchen, a house, a bed, and a cat, Leela, that we had to take care of while he was gone, right?
Yeah.
And 400 feet from the start and finish, and a central hub where people can come in and actually meet up, and NBC Bay Area News became part of got wind of the story, and then they came and took a personal interest. I mean, Gavin Thomas is the reporter. He came and did a story. He spent an hour with me, get a little bit of the background. I sent you some of the clips of that. But what surprised me, and he was like Tuesday when we finally figure out what the finish time was going to be, Gavin was supposed to be anchoring the news desk that night, but he decided that this was a better story. So he actually swapped the anchoring chore and surprised me at the top of Tam when I actually hit my 40th lap.
No way.
So I showed up and there was a guy with a camera, and that was him. And I'm like, and so when you see the clip, and when I said, I totally didn't expect you to be here, that was a genuine surprise.
Yeah.
And then he met me down at the bottom of the hill to see me finish. And then actually put that live on the 5 o'clock news on Tuesday night.
Wow.
And then another piece of serendipity that actually was completely unintended to get that, but it was a segment that called Bay Area Proud. And so that was a story that just kind of went on its own.
Wow. You seem to me like some sort of a manifesting generator. Like you should have gone straight from the finish line to a gas station to buy a Powerball ticket, man. I think that you would have won.
I already won.
Totally. That's so cool, man. Do me a favor, Michael, and because you've mentioned that you're an average runner, a middle of the pack, a back of the pack runner. Indulge me if you wouldn't mind, and like just so that listeners can kind of understand, like give us, I don't know, like a 10K time or 100-mile time or a marathon time, just so that people can kind of get an idea of like how average you really are, or if you are average.
Rio del Lago, my first 100-mile, right? And it was 2015, 3 hours time limit, 29 and a half hours.
Okay.
So doesn't get any more back of the pack than that, right?
Yeah.
I tell people that I have no interest in podium. Seriously. So I'm not, and in fact, you'll see a bunch of sponsors that actually came together that supported of our, back of my shirt kind of thing. In fact, the shirt that we actually got here was sponsored by one of the local running company. And I actually went and talked to the owner and said, like, look, I don't want money from you guys. I know, nowadays everybody wants some kind of cash. I don't want any of that. I just, look, last year when we did it, you guys weren't involved in it. And so your social media person actually got a hold of it afterwards. And, I wanted to actually make sure that you guys are in the loop for that, because we're literally right in your backyard. They're doing this. He goes, absolutely. What do you need? I said, shirts. He goes, shirts. Showed up, right? Spring Energy. Amazing people. They just showed up and say, because they have a vert challenge spring. Remember during the pandemic. So this whole vert, this obsession of with going crazy verts, it's a thing. So Rafael and Makiko from spring, just like, yes, what do you need? And so boom, right? Here's a strange one. So the running company actually have a buddy from that is a chiropractor. Their name of the shop is Mount Tam Sports and Spine. I said, dude, your shop has the word Mount Tam in it. This is Mount. It doesn't get any more Mount Tam in this. So they jumped in and they're supportive. But it just all, again, intention, right? And people just kind of rally and things come forward to you. And I know I sound trippy and I'm still feeling all of that. And all of this is still processing and oozing out of me, as you can probably, and hopefully you guys can feel it. But, 10K time, I'm at like an hour, 10-minute pace. It's,
Whoa.
And I can crank out like the fastest 5K is like 21 minutes. So I'm not fast, right? I'm not like a, 15-minute, 5-minute pace runner. I don't have, and I have no desire of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Chasing speed for me is a recipe of injury, right? Like at some point your body's going to break. I like I said, now my knee, my runner knee, I mean, towards the end, it got 300 miles, 13 days. It wasn't developed. The runner knee wasn't developed during the 13 days. It was there before I come into the 13 days. I managed it for 13 days. I ran 320 miles, over 100K a vert on it. I'm going to give it time to completely rest and heal. I'm okay with that. And so having the resolution, or at least the comfort that I'm not interested in chasing, I just interested in doing me. When I'm 80 years old, I still want to be running, and might not be as fast, as far, but I still want to be actually out there supporting and doing what I like to do. This is a passionate project, right? And I think that's what people grasp onto over the last 13 days when we were in the middle of it. I mean, every morning we have like, where's the live track? Where's your post? Because we are not seeing the track from yesterday was dead because it's only 24 hours. So it was real. And I've got a couple of races coming up this year, but two really. I have Broken Arrow Triple Crown in June. And I have TRT 100 miles, Tall Trail 100 miles. I'm going to do that as a screw, just as kind of like, okay, well, if I can do this far. TRT was something that took me 3 years, third try before I actually finally got my buckle. That was in 2018, 16, 17, 18, 3 years consecutively. I went back and it finally I figured out all the pieces to make it happen in 2018. So it is now almost 4 years later, 4 years later. I want to go back and see where I am, right? And I want to do it. And I remember when I did it the first year, there was actually a moment during that race. It was a 250-mile loop, and I was still going on my second 50-mile loop. There was somebody else coming back in the dark, and I was with a pacer. I couldn't figure out immediately, well, why there's only one headlamp and not two headlamps. Why doesn't he has a pacer? Mm-hmm. I realized he was doing it solo. He was doing it screwed. So he was coming back on his second loop already in the dark by himself. And once I came to a realization what he was doing, someday I want to do that. Someday I want to do that, but it takes time to build up to that, right? Mm-hmm. The mental toughness, the solidarity when you actually are, when you in the hole, what voice do you need to put, what positive reel do you need to put on to get yourself out of the hole, right? When you have nobody, when you don't have a pacer, you don't have a crew, you're not looking forward to another person. You go into an aid station, you go into a drop bag and figure it out. When things go wrong, you have to figure it out. So I think I'm better equipped, at least, to go test myself again. And that's same scenario, and I would love to be able to try and get a buckle as a screw, as that exercise. One last piece that I want to share, and and again, in one of those emotional moment in the journey. I sent you a little video of I call it the teaser. I put together like literally today. I was up all night. Put together the little drone footage of what kind of like the mountain, kind of give an idea. A lot of people don't actually, if you never climbed Tam before, you can see, you can visualize, you can look at all the, GPX file and animation, but you have really no appreciation in terms of what that last 300 feet of scramble looks like. Yeah. So I took a buddy of mine, Norman, was my drone pilot. And so we shot some drone footage while I'm climbing so they can actually get a visual of what that looks like. So I piece all that clip together Tuesday night. Thursday was when we start. And so I kind of jam it out to all the family and people like yourself. And then Wednesday was when I was packing out to get to the base camp. And my dad said to me, he goes, "Hey, good luck, have fun. Be safe. And if you don't think that you can actually make it, don't push, and then he gave me a hug and he got really emotional. And that's the second time my dad ever actually got emotional with me personally. I mean, I'm seeing him, other situations, but the first time was Rio del Lago when I actually crossed the finish line in my 100 miles. And he had came, but he didn't really quite know what a 100-mile is. So at the time, my crew had, stay at a hotel because he's, in the 70s. I'm like, don't come out. And we'll call you 45 minutes, half an hour before he actually about to do at the 50-mile mark. Then you come in. It was like 10 o'clock at night. They showed, I was there. They were there when I showed up at 50 Mile at Cool Fire Station. It's 50 miles, right? 50 miles in my first 100 miles. Imagine, put your frame of mind there. I'm like ecstatic to see my crew. I'm also 50 miles on my feet, first time, 100 miles. Mm-hmm. Change my shirt, pick up a pacer, and I'm into the night. I'm gone in like, 3 minutes, right? And like, so we came all that for this.
Right. I always feel bad when my family comes out to my events just for that exact reason. Like, right? I know you drove all this way, 2 minutes and I'm out.
Like, wow. Okay. Well, that's, and again, they have no visual of what we do out there. Right. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to the finish line. They knew I was coming in and 29 hours and 30 minutes. Sure enough, I walked in and I held it together for 100 miles and I literally lost my shit, like at the finish line, right? Just crying like a baby, fell in my arms of my coach. And it was great. It was, and I still say there's only one first, and I was still instantly watching that video again, I would go burst into tears because you only get one first. And I always, when I crew somebody, when they're doing their first distance, I always want to capture a video for them for nostalgic reasons because they feel like crap at that moment. They don't remember anything. But if they watch that video again, instantly it goes back to that same.
Brought right back to it.
There's only one first, and doesn't matter how spectacular your next 100 mile or 50 mile or 50K would be, it will never equal that experience on your first. My dad came up to me at the end of that 100 and gave me a hug, and he was crying and I was crying, and he said he was proud of me. Come back to that exercise when he was saying goodbye to me, he was getting emotional, and I didn't understand why until afterwards. I was talking to someone else, and I realized that he had actually saw the footage, the drone footage that I sent him that morning, because I sent it to him through the middle of the night when I was literally off the press. And I think it was the first time that he understand the magnitude of what I was doing. I remember him asking me, like, how many people is in this race that you're doing? And I said, just me. He kind of go, his mind just didn't compute, right?
Right.
And then so I think he finally came to a realization that when he saw the video that I was just like a little ant crawling up the hill, and I'm not doing that one time, but I'm doing that 40 times. Mm-hmm. I think that's why he got a little emotional, and he came to my finish. That was nice. That was very special.
Yeah, he's crying because his son is insane. He goes, "Oh, my son's nuts. What am I going to do with this guy?"
We had lunch after the event, and I showed him my Garmin, like my Garmin Connect, and I said, "This is the mileage," and he was like, "It's at 385. I thought you were only doing 300." I like, there's some arrows in there, but still, he looked at that. He looked at me. He looked at that. He goes like, "It's 385." Like, That's almost 400. He's a number guy, right? And then he looked at the time. It was 288 hours and 26 minutes or something like that. And he just go like, what? He just like, it just, you can see his gear cranking and it just didn't compute.
Yeah.
So that was a fun moment with my dad.
How did you guys end up with my man Dino on the very last lap? Have you always been friends with him, or is this a new friendship?
Thank you. So Dean and I met when I was coaching for Team in Training and various organizations, you know, row marathons and so on and so forth. And of course, Dean has always been a local legend ambassador in the area. He and I actually worked on a project. He actually called a favor last year in November. Hey, he was the ambassador for an event called Golden Gate Classic 100K, and it was a Spartan Trail event. Spartan Trail was just trying to get into the Bay Area for their World Championship series and trying to have a signature bridge race. Anyways, I helped him out, you know, and that event went off great. And he and I was actually talking about, like, he is exchanging email and say, hey buddy, let's go, because I live in Marin. So he said, let's go for a run on Mount Tam sometime. I know you do that a lot. And I said, that was November 2021, and our schedule never actually jived, right? So in the middle of my 300, and it was totally unplanned, and I explain why. I think I was day 4 and 5. I'm just kind of like, I woke up from a nap and I say, hey, I'm just going to email him. I didn't even tell my chief. I just rolled him and say, hey, Dean, remember you wanted to go run the Mount Tam? I'm going to be here for a couple of days. So you want to come join me, right? Set it off. Nothing. Never heard anything back, anything like that. And I mentioned it to Kendo, my crew chief, and he goes, and then a few days later, he goes, hey, you want me to follow up with Dean to see if he still want to come? Because he'll be a really good morale booster for you, and yada, yada, yada. And here's another one of those that don't buck it and let the universe come to you, right? I said to him, I said to Kendo, I said, no, leave it. If he actually interested, he will, and he'll find it. 2 days before Monday, I finished on Tuesday. Monday, I got an email, Kendall, he replied directly to Kendall, was that, I'm sorry to late to the game. Where do you need me? He said, it would be amazing if you can actually run a lab on Tuesday. He had 2 investors flying in from Portland on Tuesday morning. He rearranged that so that he can come run me in and then go meet with them. How's that? How's that for you? Let the universe come back to you and not push. Like if I chase him and nag him, it might be a different outcome, right? Yeah. I did nothing. I put it out there and I just kind of like, I didn't even follow up with it. And it came back better and bigger and sweeter. Yeah. And having him walk me up that hill the last lap, it was amazing. I mean, we had great chat. He was asking me like, what are you eating? How much calories are you burning? And we were just like geeking out on, because he does crazy stuff like this all the time. We ran across the country multiple times. So, you know, we were just comparing notes. It's like, dude, I am really not as like rock star as you are. You know, I'm just out here doing something nuts, you know? And he goes, yeah, I don't think average Joe go up 40 times on Tam, you know, like, whatever.
And for anyone listening, and I guess I didn't even mention this, we're talking about Dean Karnazes, author of Ultramarathon Man. That was the original inspiration for myself and probably about half of my podcast guests, how we came into ultramarathons. Most people did not know what ultramarathons were. Marathon was the longest distance until we read this book about this crazy guy called Ultramarathon Man by Dean Karnazes. And Michael was lucky enough to get his last lap with the man, the myth, the legend.
Right. I mean, how's that for serendipity? I mean,
yeah, no kidding.
I mean, that's the bowl. That's the bowl on the top of the package, right? and like it was incredible. And then seeing my crew, so many people came back. So many people from my team and training days when I trained for my first marathon that was following my social media came out just like, just let's go see him finish.
Mm.
That was the idea. And they drove all the way from Walnut Creek to Marin just to show up for me. And it was just like, wow. And then not expecting them and to see them there,
It's even better.
it's even sweeter. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm gushing and I'm oozing, and this is truly genuine of what I'm flowing out of me. So
Mhm.
can't tell you how amazing this journey has been.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful story, man. What have you learned about yourself? I mean, the 200 was epic, and we had a long conversation about that, and I loved every second of it. But now you've gone even further, and like I said earlier, talking to you, you seemed like you somehow leveled up or something. So, what have you learned about yourself? And yeah, like, this journey was humongous. Like, what's come of it, and how has it changed your life?
I don't think I can fully come to terms in terms of what the evolution or changes it is. I mean, I'm still unpacking and processing, and like I said, I'm middle of Shavasana and I'm just start crying, right?
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest lesson, I think, in the middle of it all was staying in the moment. It was interesting because I have 40 laps, 39 laps, right? Every lap, I have different people, and everybody came with one common goal, is to help, right? Is to support. But different people have different dynamics, different energy. And it was interesting to see how I leverage off of that, meaning I have folks that actually were saying, I don't want to burn you with my whatever trouble that I'm having. I'm like, please.
Yeah. It's a distraction, please.
This rock, I know exactly it's going to be my left foot before a quarter mile to the top, to the next turn. So you are helping me by flowing and infusing with the variance of this journey, right? But so much of this is, and I say staying in the present, in this moment. I can't worry about what's ahead. If I worry about what's ahead, the 40 laps, the 30 laps still left over, when I'm lap 1 and there's still 39 more, looking down that barrel, it's like, oh my God, there's still 10 more. It's 80 miles, another 25,000 feet. You can't go there. Stuff that I can't manage. I have no control over whether Dean is going to show up, whether, the rain and all of that. I have no control over that. Everything else behind me, like, literally is one day, one lap, right? Once we finish to the day, in day 1, lap 3, I have a gentleman that actually came and say, oh my God, I just did one lap with you and I'm tired. And this is your lap 3 and you still got 37 more. And I said to him, I appreciate the sentiment, but I can't go there. I cannot go there. I cannot allow myself to go there, because the moment you go there, you lose, or you are now giving attention to the wrong message, right? I have to focus on, what? I only have one more lap for the day. And once I'm done today, I start over tomorrow. And I focus on the lap that I'm on, the mile I'm on, the step I'm on. That's it. And so having that presence of mind was the most powerful tool that I've learned. I walked away from this. And the second lessons, if kind of like take on to what I did on my first 200. My first 200 was, I was super anal. I was the crew chief. I was always the planner, the caretaker, the caregiver. And it was hard for me to turn around, fall back to my crew. Second 200 in September last year, I learned better of how to actually leverage that. This time I fall full in. I was all in without having any kind of like, you guys, I'm leaving it to you. And crew chief Kendall, I mean, we move into that house on Wednesday. He and I walked out together the Tuesday after, and he never left. He was there. He was the first person I see in the morning, last person I see at night, and every lap. And I don't think if he wasn't there to do interference of anything else that actually I had to deal with, people that actually coming in and out of all of that. I mean, I created a system so like there was a sign up page on the website so people can do all of that manually without having him to take notes and deal with that. But outside of that, I fall back on all of that, and I owned the race to him and the crew. I mean, it was, but be able to let go and be flexible and just say, sure, give me two choice. I'll pick one, right? And be okay with that. And he's actually really good at that. He'll say, here are the options. Don't give me four, give me two. I'll pick one. And then we go from there, right? And it makes his job easier, makes my job easier, knowing that he and I have that trust, and the fact that we've gone through 3 large events together, there's a certain level of comfort, right? He knows how to actually handle me, and and we never actually get into. I mean, there's a couple of scenarios that we kind of go like, all right, and then he said to me, we're both stressed, right? He goes like, you're stressed, I'm stressed, different on different things. Came back. And I gave him a big hug and I say, I'm sorry, we both have a stressful moment. He goes, you and I are good. You and I are good, not on my watch. That is what I say to my runners when I'm actually on duty for them, right? When I crew people, it doesn't matter. You can yell the most obscene and cruelest thing to me, it bounce off. Because you're in your moment. Mm-hmm. My job is to get you to the finish. That's what he did for me. Huge. Huge. And so having people like that in your corner, God, you can do anything. Seriously.
Anything. Yeah. I've been jotting a couple things down here, and I just want to recap a couple of things that you've said throughout our conversation. And you mentioned these as being like keys to you getting this thing done. So we've got power of intention, staying present and staying in the moment, surrender, gratitude. And you even mentioned controlling your thoughts. And when you're talking about all your friends and the people that were out there, I can hear love emanating from your voice and coming from you. I mean, this is like spirituality 101 or Buddhism 101, or, I'm someone who believes in a higher power or God. And it seems like you had what was the equivalent of a spiritual journey out there, like Moses coming off the mountain and his hair's all white and everything's different.
I don't know what it was something that I actually actively seeked out. I mean, it was a perfect storm, right? I mean, we have all the right pieces. It was a monumental task. That for one, right? People can see the difficult challenge of it. I mean, there's plenty of runners that are actually around the area. It was so funny. I ran into a friend of mine. Hey, I thought you were doing, when we're doing up and downs. He goes, you thought you're training for a 300. I go, I am in the 300 right now as we speak. And so people actually kind of go like, oh my God. And the next day I ran into him again. He goes, you're still doing this? I'm like, yeah, well, it's not done yet. It truly, if it actually it opened a new page in my book, right? To see things differently.
Sure.
And I'm glad you were able to mirror that back to me that, hey, from the last year, when we talked about this time last year versus this experience, it was an exponential wow experience that you are actually feeling. So that's truly an emanation of what really actually I'm feeling inside. But I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I do believe in this intangible. I always tell people that I have really good parking karma. And I say that because I can actually tell you that I would park within 1 or 2 cars in front of where we need to go. He goes like, how do you do that every time? I'm like, because if you believe you have a spot, even though you might not have it the first time, you go around a block, come back, the spot opens up every time. Every time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Every time. And that's the perfect way to practice manifestation, is to do the parking lot trick. Like, yeah, I'm looking for a close spot. You know, we're going to Target. We're looking for a close spot. And sure enough, there's a spot. And like you said, it happens every time. And the more you practice it, the more it happens. I've got a friend who is really into the whole woo-woo manifesting thing. And she said that she started practicing seeing heart-shaped rocks while she was on the trail. And the more she practiced it, the more she saw. And all of a sudden, every single hike and run she went on, she's taking pictures of these heart-shaped rocks, just because that's what her brain's looking for. And it's a practice. And it sounds like you're just getting better at this.
Heart-shaped rock is actually something that I look for all the time, especially on long cell support trails, because it gives you something to distract your mind, and it's a good thing, right? Yeah. And it's a rare thing to find. And in fact, I was actually with a friend of mine. I can't remember where we were. It was on it was on a run. She goes, look, it's a heart-shaped rock. And I found another one that is a tiny one that we're putting right next to each other, like 2 in the same spot. She was taking a photo. I'm like, there's another one. Stuff like that. I know it sounds like, frou-frou or whatever, but until you experience it, and it makes me want to reach out and do more, right? To experience it more. And that really is what I was saying, is that if I can empower or actually share what I feel with someone else, they don't have to go through the same magnitude, but in some fraction of it, if other people can experience this, it's better for everybody. It makes you a happier person. It makes your vision of how you look at things that are impossible. It's a frame of mind. So much of that is attitude and a frame of mind, right? And if you change that and reframe it and take away from, it's not 10 miles, it's single digits. I am this much closer to the finish, right? I am now halfway. I'm counting down to the finish, right? I'm only doing 4 miles to the next aid station, as opposed to 40 miles, as opposed to 80 more miles and 10 more summits. It just changing so many times. And I know here's another piece that actually was something that I actually practiced, and I started in the 200, and I really honed in on this one, was visualizing what the finish line looked like. And so many times I will be in front of the group, right? Because people always say, oh my God, you're leading, so we will follow you. Like I said, hey, you're pacing me. Go in front of me, and no, we want to be behind you so we can see. So I feel so Forrest Gump, right? Wait, he's going to say something, but that scene, right? He goes, I think he's going to say something. I'm tired.
Of course. Yeah.
I want to go home. No, that wasn't.
I think I'm going to go home now.
Exactly. Boom. It takes a runner to actually get that. So many times I'm in front of the pack. Tears were coming down my face, and they don't know it, right? I'm having visuals of the people that actually back there doing stuff for me, right? What the finish line looked like. And I call it the positive reel, as opposed to thinking how hard this step is. Sometimes if I would have space, or if I have to fade, I fade to that. So by seeing what that finish looked like, me running down the last 2 blocks down to the finish, and seeing the joy and seeing myself in a third person view of what that looks like, it's so powerful. It's so powerful to keep you moving, that it's emotional, but it's one of these things that actually put you in a booster mode to charge. A couple of times that I have had people that pace me, is like I would drop them like a a half a mile to a mile because I just kind of put my music on and I just move. And they kind of go like, how the hell did he actually just cranking up the hill and they're on lap 1, right? And it's just one of those things that when you feel good, you go, and some of that feel good comes from inside and what you put in your head that actually motivate and give you different power to keep driving through the dark moments. So I'm really looking forward to TRT this July to practice some of that on my own. And when things go dark, what do I need to do to get out of it? And how would I actually feel at the end of that 100?
Would you ever come back to Tam and go further?
Heck yeah. Oh, wow. Somebody actually, sorry, that was a 2-part question. So somebody actually said to me, I saw at AR50 this past weekend, he goes, Mount Tam. I go, yeah. I said, if you want to see it, I'll take you. He goes, really? You want to go back there already? I'm like, it's my mountain. I would take anybody.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's a lot of people that couldn't make it during this time when I was out there. And I've said to them, I said to them, if you want to come back, I will take, and this is an open invitation. Anybody, any skills. If it's going to be an hour a mile, that's okay. It's a different experience for me, right? And if it's take an hour, we take an hour to do a mile and take as many breaks. And I will invite anybody that wants to go. Drop me a note. I will take you. I'm happy to take you and give you the full experience of what Mount Tam is all about. Whether I would go back and do like a 400 or 500, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's time to try something else. And it's a big number. I've put a mark on there, and I think somebody actually asked me like, "Are you going to go FKT and register and all that?" You know, maybe. But it's not why I did what I did. What I did was just to accomplish, set a goal, and see if I can do it. I did it. That's all that matters. I don't need a buckle to remind me of that. I know that I did that. That's more than enough. And I will always have that with me, and everybody else who have that this story has touched will always remember there's one crazy guy that did 40 laps on Tam. That's good enough.
Yeah.
That's good enough. Nobody's going to ask how long it take him, like how many hours, what pace he was running. We just did it. That's it. That's all that matters, right? Yeah. And I was talking to some guys, and they say somebody's already talking about doing like 40 laps up on Mission Peak. I go like, right on. I'm going to go crew them. I'm going to go crew and Pesa, because I think if I have actually just inspired someone else to go just be as crazy as I am, I need to be responsible enough to go support them. You know, so that's more than that. And maybe who knows, it'll be the next project may be doing something crazier or something more challenging, but that's always the what's next, right? And there's always the but I said it in the interview with Garvin with NBC. I said, the more times that you push the envelope of what you think is impossible, the next impossible look less impossible, right? Because you now know that you have certain tools and you have certain confidence that if I were able to do that, you go look for a bigger mark to see, you know. And the whole point of doing something challenging is that there's a risk, there's a chance that you will fail, right? And failing is okay. Failing is okay. Even if and somebody asked me, and I said to my crew, I said, if for whatever reason during this 40 laps, something goes awry where I would jeopardize my health or the risk of the safety of the crew, we stop. That was from the get-go. So it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I mean, yes, it's a crazy feat, but at the end of the day, it will still be there. I can come back, right? There's no need to turn on dues. Right. So if it's going to risk me breaking something and that long-term injury, that's not worth it to me. And that's not the point of what I'm trying to do. So, So
Yeah.
the next, whatever it is, has to fit into that category, and who knows? But if I can inspire one person to go out and do something, whether that's something is not 300 miles, but 5K or a mile or whatever, my job is done.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's a positive message.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been a real treat for me to sit here and listen to your journey, your story. I knew it was going to be a good one, and I think that people are really going to dig it. Would you want to give shout outs? This was a group effort. You had a lot of people that came out, and maybe too many people to list them all. But do you want to give shout outs to, I don't know, sponsors, buddies, friends, crew?
The sponsor has been amazing, and there are people like Victory Sports Design that actually and Spring Energy that was there from the very get go, that they believe, Elevated Legs, that they supported us from the very beginning when I was doing my 200, when it wasn't even as big as of an untasking. But my crew chief, Kendall Young, Cindy Young, Norman, Satpal Dalla, and Bruce Nguyen, Carla, you guys were my rock. You guys kept me together, kept my mind in the game the entire way. And then the overwhelming of kindness from strangers that showed up. I have people that actually came back that I coached 5 years ago, that they saw this thing and say, Coach, I'm going to come run a lap, and they do a night lap with me. I have people that drove up that only ran once and they once or twice, and then they saw this. They drove 2.5 hours, Gloria, and came from Gilroy 3 times to show up. And the most rewarding thing is okay, I think it was I don't know, day 10 or whatever, in the afternoon, there was 2 slots, the morning and the afternoon, that there was no sign up. The next morning I woke up, they were all filled. Somebody saw, Isabel was one that actually said, I had to do an 8-mile run. So instead of actually running at home, I just decided, hey, since you didn't have it, and we had a glorious morning sunrise. So she walked away with better than just an 8-mile run, but it was a beautiful sunrise in addition to that. So stories like that was just full. I went back and I finally posted the photos to my Strava, and I realized that I was able to take a group photo at the summit with every group that actually was with me. That actually paced me to the top. I had a photo of everybody. So I actually made sure that every one of those are in my Strava post.
So that's 39 different pictures we're talking about?
40.
You said you went by yourself on one of those laps.
But I still took a photo.
Of yourself. Okay, got it. Yep.
But that one solo trip though, it was something else. I cried a lot.
Yeah. I bet you that was a special trip.
That was a special trip. That was a morning sunrise. And I was talking to a friend about, she was having some issues with her dad. And I was saying that, you really should take time to make peace with your dad while he's around. He's 90s. And I said, he ain't going to change. So one of you have to turn on shift, and you might not have a chance if you don't. And so in doing so, after we hung up, it made me thought about my relationship with my father, and it becomes a bit of a waterworks, but it was so much of, I have had so many times that I experienced this, where when there's something in you, you go up a mountain and you see the scenery or a sunrise, it cleanses you. And you leave all that behind in the mountain. And you come off a new person, a different person. And really, so this has been 40 times up and down of that rinse and repeat process. So when you say, hey, you feel like a different person on now, from the beginning of that 300 to where I am now, amen. I can't tell you more. I can't say more to that.
That's it. I can't think of a better way to wrap this up, Michael. That was beautiful right there.
Thank you.
Dude, thank you for coming back on and sharing this with us. Congratulations, man. It's just a beautiful just a beautiful full circle journey, man. So I'm really, really happy for you. And of course, I can't wait to see what's next, but soak this up, man. Just sit in this for a minute, soak it up. I know that the emotions are still there. And yeah, dude, I mean, I love hearing about it. So yeah, thank you. Thank you. And
It was a
you're
treat
welcome back on the show anytime, dude.
Thank you. It was a treat to have you actually at the beginning of the 200 and see me through that transformation to where I am now.
Yeah.
You and I, that's a full circle as well. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
a treat. Thank you.
And the journey will probably continue.
Yes, I
Cool.
hope so. I hope so.
All right, brother.
Thank you.
Take
Thanks,
care of
Al.
yourself, my man.
You as well.
So good talking to you. We'll
Likewise.
talk soon. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.